Two 15-year-old boys are in the custody of Harris County officials tonight in connection with the murder of a 26-year-old Northwest Harris County woman.
In 1986, when I was 5 years old, my mother was abducted, raped, and murdered.
Two 15-year-old boys who escaped from a Texas Youth Council facility last
In
month.
1986, my daughter Kathy was abducted, was raped, and was murdered.
One of the teenagers led police early Saturday to an isolated area.
Sheriff's deputies say the teens led them to the woman's body in a field in Brazoria County.
They ended up almost in Alvin, Texas.
The authorities say O'Daniel had been sexually assaulted and shot.
She was shot once in the leg and 3 times in the back of the head.
The boys were captured 4 days later in Kathy's stolen car.
They had also tried to disfigure her face, apparently with a cigarette lighter, just to make her not identifiable.
They didn't find her body for 4 days, and you only imagine what this family went through.
They both pled guilty, so there was no trial. I have never laid eyes on either one of them.
The trigger man is in a psychiatric unit, and we can't see him.
But I am preparing to meet with the other one a few months from now.
I'm getting ready to meet one of the boys who murdered my mother.
In 1988, I pled guilty to first-degree murder and sexual assault. I'm currently serving a sentence of 54 years.
Imagine sitting at a table and looking in the eyes of the man who murdered someone you love.
6 months from now, Linda and Amy White will meet that man. Ellen Halbert is the trained mediator who has been assigned to this case.
The program is named Victim Offender Mediation Dialogue because really that's what we do. We cause a dialogue to happen.
I contacted Victim Services about 2 years ago.
This process is initiated by the victim, and then we contact the offender who's in prison to see if he might be interested. The offender, in order to participate, understands that he has to admit guilt, and it absolutely does not benefit him in any way. It does not affect his parole or how he is perceived inside the prison system. We are on our way to Tomball, Texas, which is about 40 miles northwest of Houston.
Today, Halbert will meet the victims at their home. They have been corresponding for 6 months, but this will be their first face-to-face meeting.
What I hope to have happen today is I would like Linda and Amy to talk about that day that Kathy died. I know that although Amy was only 5 years old, I'm sure she'll remember that time. She'll have some memory of it, and I know that Linda will have a lot of things that she remembers. Oh, look at the little dog, here to greet us. What I'd like to do now is just get started. Whoever wants to talk about what you remember happening, when you first knew that something just wasn't quite right, the day that you lost your daughter and your mother.
She was killed probably early morning hours of the 18th. But we didn't know, of course, she was gone until the 22nd. Remember, John said, it's the worst you can possibly imagine.
Our first meeting, it was very emotional. It was like first time sitting down, remembering everything that happened. It brings back a lot of pain and a lot of fear and a lot of stuff that I hadn't dealt with in a long time. I don't remember who told me. Was it Dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't say the words.
And he told me, and I remember screaming, "But Mommy's pregnant, Mommy's pregnant." I was so excited that I was going to have a baby brother or sister. And I remember I ran into here and I went and hid in the pantry. And I remember Dad came in there and got me.
We know this is not going to be a simple process. If it were that easy, we wouldn't be preparing for it all these months.
The preparation process can take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years before the actual mediation takes place.
The process involves months of paperwork and soul-searching. Both sides keep journals, answer questionnaires that probe their fears and motivations, complete grief inventories that examine how the crime has affected their lives.
The philosophy behind this program is to give power back to victims.
Amy's parents divorced when she was just an infant. After her mother's murder, she was adopted by her grandparents, Linda and John White.
Silly boy.
She is the single mother of a year-old boy, Chase.
Tomball is a pretty small town, so when Kathy was murdered, it was pretty big news. The funeral service was like the biggest one they've had in Tomball, and it took up this whole parking lot and the parking lot next door. People were standing outside.
Kathy was our only daughter. We had 2 sons. There's this family album here. She was slender. She had long brown hair, blue eyes. She was very vivacious, very animated. Here's a picture of our whole family when Steve was probably 5 or 6.
She made me feel very good, and I could observe her making other people feel the same way. Easy to talk to, easy to be with.
We would laugh together, and I can still remember the way she would, go, "Oh, Mom," just like that, "Oh, Mom." I can remember it like it was yesterday. Here is Kathy with Amy.
She loved to dance and sing. Even when I was like 3 or 4, I just remember how beautiful she was.
This was close to the last Christmas. There's Steve.
I think there's a part of me that doesn't want to remember because then I have to accept the fact that she's gone. So honestly, it's easier to not remember.
We're on our way to the All-Red unit in Wichita Falls, which is a huge maximum security unit.
Today is Halbert's first meeting with convicted murderer Gary Brown. She's apprehensive.
Lots of razor wire. What we hope to do today is get Gary to talk more about what was going on in his life that drove him to the point that he committed this horrible crime. He has not wanted to talk about this crime, and I'm hoping I can get him to do that today. You think the warden can see us now, Warden Trim?
Yes, ma'am.
The prison's warden is unfamiliar with the mediation program.
Now, these guys, I understand they have to actually come out and admit fully that they're responsible.
Yes, yes. And this is also a victim-driven process. The victim has to ask for it. And although it's not publicized, we have almost 500 victims on our waiting list.
And I don't understand, for me, really what the families hope to get out of this process.
People who are victims of crime heal in different ways, and some really want to put it behind them and they want to go forward with their lives and never think about it again. But then others have many, many questions. And the only person who can answer the questions that victims have is that offender.
If someone hurt somebody in my family and they were asking me if I wanted to be part in this, my first question is, are you going to shake me down at the door? Well, could I ask you a personal question?
You bet.
What do you get out of this deal?
Well, I think everyone has their own personal story. And for me, I was the victim of a violent crime. In 1986, a man broke into my house and spent the night in the attic, and the next morning, when everyone had gone, he surprised me in my bathroom. He was dressed in a ninja suit with everything covered but his eyes, and during the next 2 hours, I was raped, stabbed 4 times, and left for dead in my bathroom. As a result of the attack on me, I started working with crime victims. I work in the district attorney's office in Austin, Texas. I manage the victim witness division. What I do as a mediator is all volunteer. And it's 100 hours of training. It's very intense.
Well, this is the offender's travel card, which gives us some pretty good information at our fingertips. And just looking at his record, I mean, it's obvious to me he's had problems his whole life. Let's see. At age of 8, admits use of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines, LSD, Quaaludes at the age of 12, intravenous use of cocaine, LSD, and methamphetamines at age 13, and an admitted alcoholic, 10 suicide attempts, mostly by overdosing on pills. Doesn't excuse what he did, but this kid never had a chance.
And this mediation might be Gary Brown's only chance. Gary Brown killed Kathy White 15 years ago. Ellen Halbert, the mediator with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, has been corresponding with Brown for 6 months and hopes that today he will finally be able to talk about the crime.
He was high, drunk, I didn't think, anything could stop us or get in the way of it.
What kind of drugs were you on?
I was on coke, speed. They call it speedball when you mix them together. And we'd been drinking MD 2020. That's when we took advantage of her and gave her no choice on it, sexually.
Both of you?
Yes.
As far as Ellen knows, Gary has never spoken to anyone about his crime, not even his cellmates.
He's been able to push it out of his mind and not think about it, as many offenders do. It was good for him to be able to talk about it.
The only way we thought we'd ever be able to keep it from being known and get away with it was to make sure she couldn't say nothing.
Did you know she was dead?
More or less after the second or either third shot, that was pretty well we both believed that, just by the way it was seen that she was there, because she wasn't moving, there was no screaming, there was no crying.
Anything happened after that?
We was trying to make it, at that time, make it where nobody could identify her. That's why we had tried to set her on fire. And we tried by setting her hair on fire, trying to actually buy time is what we was trying to do. I mean, that's how sick we were back then.
I was struck from the very first time I met Gary that there's something very sad and lonely about him. He'd never hurt anyone before this time, just tried to hurt himself. He's very childlike in many ways. He suffers from severe depression. He has told me that he takes Zoloft and lithium and has taken it for years. And I felt a sympathy for him that I didn't understand. Here is this man that had murdered a young woman, and I was feeling sympathy for him.
The program does not require the offender to write letters to his victims, but Gary has chosen to do so. Ellen has read and approved the letters that she delivered to the family.
To the daughter of the mother. As I write this letter, I don't know if you will read it. I think I would be the last person you want to hear from. I'm sure you hate me and maybe wish I was dead. You know I don't blame you if this is true. I understand and I don't believe
you're wrong for feeling that way. I know no matter what I do, I cannot make things right. I don't expect y'all to believe how sorry I am for messing up y'all's life.
If I could change a day in my life, it would be that day. I will always hate a part of myself for that day. Why? I was 15 years old when that happened. I've been in and out of boys' homes and state school all my life. I was left behind when I was born by my mom. I was put in an orphanage. Later on, my stepdad sexually abused me. That's when I first ran away from home.
I understand what it's like not to have a family. Whatever you think of me, I understand. And if you hate me for the rest of your life, that's okay. It's my fault. I caused you to feel that way.
Well, I'm going to stop here. Like I said, I don't expect you to believe me, but I hope somewhere down the line my actions will show how sorry I am. Gary Brown.
This process demands that both sides re-examine their lives.
Open wide, yeah. Even though Kathy has been dead since 1986, she's still here in this process and in everything we do. I know that she would not want me to be living in hate and anger. I know that she would want me to do what I'm doing.
I don't think I could go look at somebody and kill someone in my family and do that. If I'd have had one. All my life I wished. I had a family when I was in juvenile wishing, why me, why me? How come I can't have a family like everybody else? As far as how I look back then, I feel like something wouldn't happen, wouldn't stop me, wouldn't have got caught, I probably would have been dead. Yeah, I would have ended up dead out there. Because I was still doing drugs at the time, and I was still running, and I was still trying to be cool. Ready to go? This stays bad. Recently, I've been having some dreams, and sometimes when I wake up out of the dreams, I feel like it was 2 or 3 days ago that all this has actually happened. It's like it's all been right there again, and that ain't been going on for the last 10 years. But now it's like it's all right there, like it just happened again.
It's been 3 months since Ellen's last meeting with Linda and Amy. She wants to know that they are ready to hear what only the killer can tell them.
You wrote that you just love to hear stories about your mom, but I wonder how hard that's going to be to hear this story.
I want to hear anything that she said to him. I mean, anything that she said to anybody, I want to hear. You know, any little piece of information I can get, anything.
And of course, I want to know some things that happened that day. That's been the one thing all these years that I've not been able to think about, those last few moments. I've never been able to think about that.
When you had come the first time, you had said that he didn't know that Kathy had a daughter. And I want to know if that would have made any difference. If she would have told him, you know, I have a 5-year-old daughter waiting at home for me, would that have made any difference?
That's a wonderful question. These are things that I think he needs to tell you, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to hear them.
I don't really know what happened. It didn't bother me for years. It didn't bother me for years that I didn't know what they looked like. The state of Texas took care of them for me. I didn't ever want to think about them again. And it probably would have been okay to stay that way if I hadn't gotten involved in restorative justice and started teaching in prison. And I couldn't just let them be the boys that killed my daughter. All of a sudden I did want to think of them in human terms.
To help cope with her grief, Linda went back to school and now teaches psychology and philosophy in 2 Huntsville prison units.
Good evening. Look at the definition of aggression that Myers gives. Yeah, behavior intended to hurt.
Yes, sir.
I believe that everything that I do honors my daughter, Kathy. I believe that when I walk into prison and look in the faces of those men there that are human beings, I believe that honors her. And I certainly believe that this mediation will honor her.
Ellen has been corresponding with offender Brown for 3 months, but there is still work to be done.
How have you been? What I'm going to try and get him to do is own what he did. Own it in a way that he hasn't done before. The words that he has used, they're minimizing it. And what I want to do today is to get him to look at that. So you don't remember everything because you were so high?
As far as the things you can remember the most, and for me, was that extra part where she realized, you know, the gun was on her. She had no choice from that point on.
And what do you mean by she had no choice?
Whatever we said, that's what she was going to do.
And what did you do?
Let her down a road where it was leading out into pasture and country, to where, you know, be away from everything. Where we participated in sexual.
And so what you really did was, what did you do to this woman? You need to use those words.
You raped her.
You raped her. Both of you raped her.
Yes, ma'am. I held the gun and my foul partner did his part in the
What did
sex,
he do?
raping her. And then it was done, then he held the gun and I went back down. I participated in the rape and did it too.
Amy, on her own initiative, has written a letter back to Gary.
I really don't know what to expect when I meet you, but I look forward to meeting you. I don't know what to expect to get out of it. I'm very nervous, and I'm sure you are too.
The letter was pretty overwhelming for him. And overwhelming in a strange way, because he was so surprised that she didn't have a letter that was just full of anger and bitterness and hatred toward him.
I want you to know that even through the crime you committed against my mom caused me more pain than you will ever know. I feel sorry for you. As far as when all this is over, if they choose not to forgive me, I'm not going to be mad. As far as what happened back then, it did happen, and I can't change that. But I want them to know and believe through my actions that, no, I'm sorry.
Although only Linda and Amy will meet Kathy's killer, the process has stirred emotions in their whole family.
Yeah, because right at first, I wanted to kill these guys, you know. I mean, initially when it first happened.
At times it's been real difficult for me, watching them with the pain and then inability to deal with it.
You know, us three guys can sit here and think of a lot of things that's wrong with you doing anything for him. You know, we might have a problem with that. But there's a lot of things that are right with it.
Yeah.
What if you guys are the difference between him doing it again or not doing it again? So.
What my mother and Amy are doing for me is very, very difficult to do. Still, 15 years later, I'm not really willing to face the pain that I would have to face to go through this.
Do you all have anything that you want us to say? Or any questions you want us to ask?
I'd be curious to know about the car. It made a difference to me because I took responsibility for a car. At this point, I don't even want to know, almost, but I would like to know one way or the other. I'd like to know if it wasn't a problem with the car, then I could totally be relieved.
You know, maybe it's just a pact among men. I don't know what it is, but, you know, I do feel responsible, and I cannot accept that failure.
It's been 15 years, and I think we should be able to talk about it now. I mean, I think this can bring us together closer as a family. I really do.
Absolutely.
I've been tracking this process now for over a year, and my training has taught me to recognize from their written material and from our face-to-face meetings when both sides are ready, and they are ready.
The mediation will take place in 2 weeks. In 24 hours, offender Gary Brown will meet the family of the woman he murdered 15 years ago.
It's gonna be a long 24 hours. Ain't no sleeping tonight, I already know.
Well, I had a dream last night. It's kind of a bad dream. I think it just had something to do with me being really nervous.
Trying to find pictures of Kathy when she was younger. I want to take some pictures of her with me to Wichita Falls.
Cannot decide.
Well, that's sleeveless. I can't bring anything sleeveless. Can't wear sleeveless stuff in the prison.
Not real short.
Here we go.
This is called a crop cut. Very textured, very textured. What do you think?
Bye-bye. Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
We're 23A and B.
Linda and Amy began this journey over a year ago. Today, it will take them over 6 hours to travel from one end of Texas to the other. But it will be a trip not measured in miles.
This is quite a trek.
The mediation program suggests that the victims tour the offender's unit. Amy has never been in a prison before.
Thank you. I appreciate it, boss man. Gary.
Gary Brown.
That's the building he actually lives in. Parts of this unit here are very violent and aggressive type areas. All of our cells are basically just like this one.
No matter what you've done, I mean, that's a hard way to live. You know, you don't have any privacy. You don't have freedom. You don't have, you know, a lot of things. I think that's really sad.
Today is the day of the mediation. After all this work, it is finally going to happen. I'm not nervous, not nearly as nervous as I was before a few weeks ago.
Not even hard.
I'm getting nervous. I can't eat much more.
The mediation will take place in the prison chapel.
Well, in a few minutes, we're going to go get Gary. All right. You have anything you'd like to talk about or any issues you might have before we go get him?
No, I'm fine.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's go get Gary.
They called for me 14 bottom, brown. It's candy.
Really nervous. I want you to just sit down and for 30 seconds or maybe a minute, just gather your thoughts. Okay. See you in a minute.
It is 10:30 a.m. 15 years of grief, guilt, and soul-searching have come down to this moment.
Oh my goodness, he's already up there.
Well, all these many months that we've been preparing has led us to where we are today. We have created a safe place for you, Linda, and you, Amy, to meet with you, Gary. And my role is in this meeting is the same as it's always been. I'm just here to support all of you.
I can tell it's going to be kind of a tough day. The main thing I want to get out of it, Gary, is I want you to know a lot about us and what the last 14 and a half years have been like for us. Not just the bad, the good things too. And I want to know the same things about you.
Well, you pretty much said everything that I wanted to say. I want you to know that I'm just as scared and nervous as you are. I don't want to say anything else right now.
One of the problems that we have, Gary, is that we never did have enough of what really happened to put things together.
I'm hoping that by going through this all over again, not on my behalf, but on y'all's behalf, that y'all don't wind up hating me even more and never even being able to consider anything about me being good and it changing, which I've dealt with all these years. And
I just feel like the sooner we can kind of get, maybe we just need to get past that. Can you do it? We'll let you know if you get to a point where we can't listen, okay?
She's always having trouble with the station wagon. And it's on, everything I'm telling you is true. I'm not making up, I'm not trying to make myself look good or my foul partner look good or anything. It's just the way it went. She saw us having trouble, and out of curiosity, she asked what was wrong.
Can I just interrupt you long enough to ask you, where were you when this was going on?
At the gas station.
Like, do you know why she was at the gas station?
She was getting gas. I remember that.
She was just getting gas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
At that time, she said, well, I can take out Alvin if you want, bring you back up. And the God's got truth, this part was volunteered. At that time, the gun was never pulled. There was nothing, she didn't even know we had it. It was when we got close to Alvin, that's where things wound up changing. I let her down, told her where to go down a road that I knew was leading to nothing out in pasture. And then when she asked why, Marvin pulled the gun. He had the gun on him and says, "Don't worry about it. Just do what we're telling you."
Do you know why it went in the direction it went? I mean, can you remember back what happened?
Thought was shooting in the leg would give us time to get away. And honestly, at first there was no intent. It did change up, but there was no intent of killing. It was to slow her down so we'd be able to get in the car and get away and be long gone before she could tell anybody what had happened. In our minds, we felt we had no choice, about this, because she's already seen our faces.
I mean, it wasn't like she pissed you off, or or y'all even had to force her to do it. She was just doing it just to be nice. And those were pretty much the last thing she said was just why.
When she was out there and she heard me and him talking, and we had realized we'd already gone too far, she said, "You can take the car, you can take the money, you can take anything you want, and I won't say nothing." And then as Marvin pointed the gun towards the way, she said, "I forgive you and God will too." And then she put her head down. And if I don't remember anything else that night as clear as I did, it was that right there.
That was your mama. Down to the very last moment of her life.
Did you know that Kathy was pregnant?
No, ma'am. It did not show.
No, she's only 2 months pregnant. But she didn't tell you?
No, ma'am. I think she was too busy trying to keep up what was going on.
We thought she might have told you to keep you from killing her.
Honestly, I didn't know this until almost a little bit after the conviction. And me getting convicted back then. There was a lot of things I didn't even know. I didn't know about you.
I just wondered what she told you, if she said anything about her being pregnant or she said anything about me, because I had just wondered if that would have saved her.
My opinion, the reason why she didn't want to say too much is because maybe she would have been scared it could have raised a reaction or more hostility towards her.
You remember what she looked like?
I remember she had, I want to say blonde hair, kind of blondish brown, and blue jeans on. I don't remember the color of the shirt.
We brought pictures. This is Kathy when she was little, and I think she was 6 in that picture. This was Kathy's wedding. This is the last great picture of Kathy. That was, see, she really had brown hair, but she had been messing with it.
Well, I have a baby now, and Kathy not being there, it's been really, really hard. And but now that I have a baby, it's even harder at times, because she would have been his grandmother, and Chase will never get to meet her.
That's her son, Chase.
He's beautiful, isn't he?
Thank you, Gary. We'll see you in a little while.
Thank you for allowing me to have this chance. But try to help y'all.
You are. You are helping. It's hard, and I think it takes a lot of guts to do it, so I appreciate that.
After 4 emotional hours, each side goes their separate ways for lunch. They will be back.
Did you eat anything to eat?
Jawbreaker.
After the details of the crime have been disclosed, there is a noticeable change in the
Do
room.
you think maybe you should spit that out? You want
Kind of lump.
Looks like somebody hit you. Well, this afternoon, we're going to talk about several different things. Linda wants to talk a little bit about their family. She wants you to know them, just like they want to know you more. And Amy's going to also talk about her childhood. So
I was afraid of everything as a little girl. I was so scared of everything. I get dropped off at the school bus, and any type of vehicle would come down our street. I thought they were after me. I thought they were out to get me, and I'd start running.
We took Amy to counseling for first couple of years. And then again in 7th grade, she started having problems with depression. We had to take her back. And my sons, John and Steve, have had a lot of emotional problems over this, too.
There's times where I tried to strangle myself, or I've tried to overdose.
How about at 8? What did you try to do?
I
at
swallowed
8?
a whole bunch of Tylenols thinking it would kill me. My stepfather, whenever I got in trouble, he forced me into 2 things. Either I could take the whooping, or either I had to do a sexual favor.
I can't imagine. What do you do with your time, Gary?
Really? Just in between, it really boils down to nothing but basically recreation and then watching movies in the evening whenever a movie comes on.
Do you ever read?
Yeah, I read
What do you
based
like
on
to
true
read?
stories.
Based on true stories.
I like based on true stories. Meaningful stories. I like the way they get me at the end, like Touched by an Angel does.
Yeah, you like that?
Love it.
We do too.
You ever thought about me making pro? How y'all gonna feel or think?
If you have a place to go and something to do positive with the rest of your life, you making parole is absolutely fine with me. And so I do hope that no matter how hard it is, that you will stay involved in education the minute they let you into it, as long as you can until you get out. And go as far as you can.
I want to finish it before I get out. As far as, especially the GED. Please don't ever think about anything y'all ask me to do. To think it's going to frustrate or be an inconvenience or hurt me. As long as y'all allow me to be able to show y'all in different ways, I will continue until y'all stop or y'all say I can't.
We will allow you.
To be honest with you, that will mean a whole lot to me.
We will allow that, I guarantee you.
Well, you know, it's almost 4:30, and we're going to have to be finishing. Do y'all have any thoughts, any final things that you would like to say to Gary?
Amy and I have been whispering, what we've been whispering about is we'd like Gary to have a picture of us. And you can get close, you don't have to stand back.
The ending surprised me for a couple reasons. Yeah, it felt really good thinking, here are the 2 people supposed to be hating me, but they were still willing, to embrace in a picture. I felt like I was hit with a baseball bat, knocked in left field, because, that really surprised me.
Say cheese, Gary.
Cheese.
For me, it was the most logical thing in the world. After this time together, what we gave each other, to have a hug at the end.
Thank you. God bless y'all.
We'll be watching you.
Trust me, I'll give you something to see in the bright light.
That's good.
I'm pretty glad that I hugged him and taken the pictures and stuff, but it was really, really hard for me to do that. Well, thank you for doing this.
I hope it really does you good.
But as hard as it was, I know that that's what I was supposed to do at that time. And then here's a picture of all 3 of us, with Gary standing in the middle. It's been a month, and I feel like a whole different person. He looks pretty scared. Not only do I feel closer to Kathy, which is, you know, the most amazing feeling you could ever feel. Here's my mom and I. But not only that, I feel closer to myself because we both look like we've been crying. All of our makeup is gone. I know my strength, and I know that there's not one fear that I can't face, that there's not one obstacle I can't overcome. He has a face I'll never forget. It was so hard, the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it definitely was just amazing.
So this one's going to be real hard for my family to see. And of course, the other big piece is the fact that she said, I forgive you, and God will forgive you too. If she could say that in the last moments of her life, then she was not in the same kind of terror that I have always imagined she was. So it gives me peace to know that she had some peace even in those last few moments. It gives me another kind of affirmation that doing this mediation was 100% the right thing for Amy and I to do.
I could have never predicted that this photo of the three of them arm in arm would have ever happened. I could have not predicted that. I really don't think there's been a day that I haven't thought about it. I mean, the impact of what happened in that room, the emotion that was created among those three people, Linda and Amy and Gary, and I can tell you, it spilled over onto me. Gary looks like a little boy. I really loved it, and I thought it was enormously successful for everyone, for me. I think he could have been a wonderful son to someone.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the most important days of my life. I've never even had anything turn out that special. I've never had anything that had that much fulfillment. I know I shouldn't have smiled. I went crazy there. I do feel better about myself because I did accomplish something good. Like I said, I'm not fixing to do anything that's gonna make my conscience bother me anymore. And if it's my conscience gonna bother me, it means I'm not doing something right. I'm not gonna make that mistake no more. And I do feel changes within me. I didn't do all this for nothing, and I can't stop now.